Hello everyone, it's time for a tier list as well as also a very lightweight guide on surviving in Outcome Memories version 0.2. This tier list is primarily going to be focused on this game in a comp lobby, a concept I brought up in my previous video. This assumes competent players, larger lobby sizes, and a lobby where generally everyone is around the same skill level, and likely a more knowledgeable player to some degree. We're not looking for competitive necessarily, just competent. This way, we're able to look at each character and their functionality and what they bring to a team at large. Tiers are going to be broken down into 4 categories. First is their overall power level in these competent lobbies, considering all the maps and executioners in the game. Second is their last man standing power level, considering all maps and executioners as well. Third is the X factor of a character. This game is bloated with stunners, hit and run characters, and the like at the moment, and even more are going to be added to the game at some point in time. This becomes an issue when comparing these characters to each other and weighing how good their individual characteristics, their X factor, truly is to a team. It's basically opportunity cost. By running Knuckles, you're missing out on playing every other survivor in the game, for example. As the game's roster of survivors gets larger and larger, this will only become more and more competitive and impactful on a character's rating on a tier list. Finally, we will also have a solo queue or a public tier list ranking as well. This ranking will have the lowest impact on the overall ranking a character receives, but I feel as if neglecting to point these out would make a tier list far less helpful towards the average player. It's important to note that Outcome Memories is a team-based game. When alone for too long with no last man standing buffs at least, it's only a matter of time before any and every individual survivor is caught out and killed when extensively focused. This tier list will be looking at both individual power as well as how good they are when it comes to protecting their team and staying alive at large. With that out of the way, let's start the video going from who I believe is the weakest survivor to the strongest survivor. Somebody will always have to sit at the bottom of a tier list. It's just the nature of how these games work when characters fulfill different roles and do different things. And unfortunately, someone fell from the top all the way to rock bottom, Amy Rose. Amy Rose is an unfortunate character at the moment. Let's start with what makes her good. Amy is a jack-of-all-trades character boasting 2 stuns, overall balanced stats, and the ability to heal herself and her team, albeit very slowly when in possession of the Sun card. She's able to be extremely independent thanks to these characteristics. Being a character who can be comfortably alone some of the longest of any character, but there are still characters that do this better than her. Her Sun heal also allows her to constantly be regenerating HP, even in chase, which gives her massive value for every second she's able to buy to avoid major damage thresholds. Emperor also gives her damage reduction, which can help in some niche matchup situations. Unfortunately, this is where Amy's good traits end. She has 2 major hurdles. First, let's talk about the larger of the two, her RNG. Amy is a character who, at the moment, clearly has a best-in-slot card combination. The Sun is far too valuable of a card, especially in the meta of version 0.2, to not have in every single matchup currently. You always want this card. The Moon is an RNG buff or debuff with no way of telling what it actually offers once you roll it. The world would be good if not for the speed decrease, which completely ruins her chances of surviving in this current meta. Strength is an outright detrimental card in the grand scheme of things, which really only leaves the Emperor and Fool as the only other 2 cards worth getting next to the Sun. Despite the limited pool, you can just get very unlucky in getting combos that are actually usable, aka Sun with either Fool or Emperor, limiting Amy's ability to function at all in some cases. Every other character in this game, minus Tails, starts the game at their full potential with no need for RNG and time commitment to get going. Amy can get so unlucky that she simply never gets the card she needs to come online in the first place. She also has no meaningful way to manipulate her RNG at the moment. It's also worth noting that while the Sun is her best card, it's also extremely slow in its healing. This health healing is incredible, and the speed doesn't really matter as long as you could just buy breathing room, but healing teammates often results in a lot of time spent doing nothing for either Amy or the people being healed, and rotating while healing can also be difficult due to possible speed differentials. We then come to Amy's second major flaw, that being that 2 stuns are all she really has, and neither of them are particularly special. Hammer is an easy stun to land when Amy herself is being focused, but it can be difficult to land on an executioner who is ready for it and knows how to press spacebar. Hammer throw varies a lot in effectiveness from map location to specific executioner matchup. Colossus can even use the lingering hitbox of an immobile hammer for a free parry, which can result in her death. Both of these stuns also don't really last that long by default, and one of her only good cards makes her stuns overall weaker. The card that makes her stuns better makes it way harder for Amy to actually get any value out of that stun, and is overall way more of a significant debuff to her survival. It's just a bad card. There's no card that modifies the functionality of her stuns either, or gives them different attributes. She's a character with very linear and basic stuns that are pretty low impact by themselves. So, is Amy Rose the weakest character in the game for these reasons? In my opinion, yes. Does this mean she's unpickable garbage? Absolutely not. Amy is a tremendous character when you can't reliably expect teamwork or help from your team. Her and Eggman are characters I can pick in a lobby I know isn't too high skill, but I'm still struggling on an individual level. Amy is practically a mandatory pick against Tripwire as well. Not only is Amy one of the few survivors capable of directly disarming traps, but Tripwire gets a lot of her pressure through escalating chip damage. Amy is able to passively heal that off for simply just existing with the Sun card, and it allows her to stay proactive as well as help her team recover should she need to. 2011X and Colossus are where things get trickier. I think Amy can absolutely work against Colossus, but she absolutely wants to stay as far away as possible from him. Hammer Throw in its current state just isn't that safe against him. She's also lacking in strong counter options to charge, the centerpiece of Colossus's kit. You need to use a combination of map positioning as well as her hammer bounce to stay alive should Colossus attempt to reach you with it. This just leaves 2011X. Without Rage Mode, Amy is pretty strong against him. However, in Rage Mode, she's easily ran over with it. If 2011X deems you a threat during Rage Mode, she'll die during it with really nothing she can do. Distance you gain with your stuns also can't be kept for long, especially as your team gets smaller against 2011X. Overall, while Amy does have a lot of strong tools and is very independent, her RNG dependent cards, as well as the fact she simply isn't doing anything exceptional with her stunning capabilities, leaves her lagging behind pretty harshly in the current version 0.2 meta, outside of a very specific Executioner matchup. And even then, that doesn't fix her real big issue, which is RNG. Once more, despite being the weakest survivor in the game, I don't think Amy is a truly bad survivor. Once Amy gets the ability to control her card RNG more, as if she was playing a roguelike game or something with bans and refreshes and stuff, as well as simply just more cards that'll do more than simple stat tweaks, she'll be fine. However, the longer it takes for her to get this, the more she'll fall off as time goes on. Here's hoping the recode can help her with these issues. Next up, and this shouldn't come as a shock to many people, Dr. Eggman. So why is the Doctor so low? Let's talk about what makes him good first. Eggman is a character with tremendous self-sustain when his team is fully alive. A shield that allows him to retain full basic mobility while active, an extremely fast dash, and a double jump. It's a simple yet effective kit at staying away from the Executioner through very instant, powerful options, despite how linear they are. This is all he has though. After the amount of nerfs he's received in version 0.2 due to how strong he was against 2011X on launch, Eggman has fallen down in power tremendously, and now 2011X is buffed, and there's 2 new Executioners with multiple strong mobility options to shut down the multiple layers of Eggman's kit with general ease, and Eggman has received no buffs in compensation. Eggman is, in his current state, in my opinion, very easy to deal with in a last man standing situation a lot of the time now, and due to his nature as a survivalist support hybrid, it's very easy for him to end up in that situation. To make matters worse, while people like to say they're one of the good Eggmen who use their shield to protect their team, this is all Eggman really offers in terms of team support. A half-second stun, which then gives Executioners multiple seconds of stun immunity. Not to mention, many players, even coordinated ones, will very rarely expect Eggman to use a cooldown to try and save them, and may end up using a cooldown only for Eggman to eat the attacker ability instead. And now that Survivor has to deal with a stun-immune Executioner that's likely already at close range, as Eggman quickly leaves as if he's truly helped all that much. I've seen people die because of Eggman using his shield to protect others. I think it's good to do if you know someone has no other options against an Executioner in that situation. But outside of that, it's not Eggman's job to be protecting others, and really he shouldn't be. Because sometimes you can just end up getting your teammate killed with a successful shield. Especially with the way some things in this game work now, like Colossus's charge staying slow and unable to attack after a slam. Sometimes charge could be preferable to Eggman stunning him, because once Eggman does stun him out of his charge, he's now able to act after half a second and be stun immune for several seconds. The most Eggman is really meant to do is keep himself safe as to not be a burden and secure easy revives from dangerous situations. While this is absolutely a valuable asset to have on a team, I can't help but feel as if it's better to structure your team and survivor choices around having no one go down in the first place. However, there is one big thing that keeps Eggman out of being the weakest character in the game currently, in my opinion. Spoilers for later in the tier list, but Metal is a tremendously powerful character, and Eggman makes one of his strongest attributes absolutely oppressive, and his shield naturally complements Metal as well. Eggman's presence turns Metal into one of the biggest threats to an Executioner, into arguably the biggest threat to an Executioner. So, in what situations should you pick Eggman? Basically, if you're already struggling to provide value to your team in other roles or characters, you might as well pick Eggman. That way you're just not being a burden nearly as much with your very easy tools to stay out of trouble. Eggman's kit allows him to remain a consistently low priority target. While he's absolutely much weaker to extended focus now than he used to be, it's hard for Executioner players to justify that focus in a lot of cases until most of his team is already dead. When it comes to specific counterplay, just do your usual thing against 2011X. Against Tripwire, specifically hunt for impactful mines to use your shield on to disarm. A trip mine out in the open isn't nearly as important of a disarm as a mine blocking a spring. Against Colossus, just use your double jump to stay in hard to reach places, and use your shield as a deterrence for his charge. Good Colossus players will absolutely try and play around your shield, or might not charge at all if you're around. Do your best to leverage that. In the grand scheme, Eggman is a largely selfish character, and his more selfless behaviors can be a detriment in certain instances. In a solo queue situation, he's a strong option, but outside of this, he's a character who will really struggle to provide any meaningful value to his team unless there's a Metal Sonic. He's pretty much always a good option if you have a smart and skilled Metal Sonic player on your team, and I would always pick him in that instance. Unlike Amy, I can't recommend any sort of changes to make him more competitive because he's eventually getting a rework. Here's hoping it's good, and I'll be talking about some things regarding Survivor reworks in the near future. As the lone guardian of B tier, we have Knuckles. Knuckles is, in my opinion, a good character. He's now in the top 7 of the roster at this point in the tier list, and he has a lot of strong attributes. B is an average passing grade after all. As usual, let's focus on his strong elements first. Knuckles is a character with a very basic yet powerful stun. When he enters his punch stance, he gains damage reduction and slowly begins to empower his punch. More charge means more stun, and he can charge it through both Executioner charges, don't get confused with that, as well as reduce the damage he receives from those things and then blow an Executioner up afterwards. Second is his counter. This counter is a lot easier to land than something like a guest block in Forsaken, and can be trickier for some to properly punish due to him being able to jump during it. It's not as good as it used to be as of version 0.1, but it's still a pretty good ability due to how long it lasts, that even people who know the timing can get a bit too eager and fall into it after they've already reacted to it. Third is stun stacking. This allows Knuckles to consistently add value to every stun triggered, but especially long stuns like Metal Sonic or Tails. Longer stuns also buy him time to charge his punch, and then stun stack even harder. Finally is his mind games. Knuckles can enter and exit his punch stance rapidly, and can also charge his punch but then counter. It can occasionally be pretty hard to meaningfully rack up damage on Knuckles due to how much damage reduction he'll have, and how much he'll be faking you out. A Knuckles player that really knows how to leverage his damage reduction can be extremely hard to put down and stay close to. There's also his glide, which allows him to stall for even longer, as well as stay very mobile when charging his punch. Having played against really good players that know how to really use wall cling to its fullest, I personally didn't mind when it was infinite, but that was just me. Anyways, starting with what makes Knuckles weaker than characters higher on this list, what we just talked about, mind games. Knuckles is a character that lives and dies by his ability to fake out an Executioner. While his damage reduction is good, it can only buy him so much time, and once he rips his punch properly, there goes any chances of using that damage reduction. There's a few things better than damage reduction, such as not taking damage in the first place as well. Second is just how dependent he is on his stuns. He can only gain so much distance after a stun anyways due to his overall lack of mobility in his kit. If you fail your counter, you're getting punished pretty hard. If you miss your punch, you're probably getting hit once or twice without a counter. And even then, the Executioner might expect you to counter shortly after missing your punch. He gets pretty good reward for landing his abilities, but can be punished severely for improper usage. Knuckles is a strong but risky character, and risk can oftentimes lead to inconsistency, and inconsistent performance often makes weaker characters. There's a pretty funny thing I've noticed about this player base, which is that most people who main Knuckles tend to agree with my placement of him being a mid-tier. Really strong, but having noticeable weaknesses. However, people who don't play Knuckles tend to value him even higher. And I don't blame them, because when you encounter a really good Knuckles player, they're so impressive to watch, and especially a pain as an executioner. This does also bring us to our next major weakness of Knuckles, which is skill. More specifically, a disproportionate amount of it compared to other characters. Every survivor in this game is pretty easy to play well once you know what you're doing, I would say. Knuckles is one of the least easy characters to play, and as a matter of fact, I'd say he's truthfully quite hard. He's got a very low skill floor, but one of the highest skill ceilings in the game. And on top of that, by having a counter be so core to his game plan, Knuckles is placing a lot of stock in the behavior of the Executioner player. If the Executioner player is able to properly see through his tricks or read him, Knuckles will struggle. If Knuckles improperly executes one of his techniques, he will struggle. If Sonic or Metal beef their stuns, for example, they can just leave with no punishment for it. Knuckles becomes a sitting duck. In this way, he's a pretty honest character. He's got his tricks, and whether you guess right or wrong will determine the outcome. If you guess wrong, he punishes you. If you guess right, you punish him. He doesn't have a button that just allows him to instantly disengage, and has to properly fight an Executioner more than others to protect himself. And while stun stacking is strong, I think a lot of people can tend to overrate it, especially on Knuckles, who has no form of mobility like Sonic, for example. When it comes to specific Executioner matchups, Knuckles is going largely untouched into version 0.2, but 2011X getting buffed absolutely does hurt. 2011X obviously has his Rage mode, and he doesn't care about stuns in that, and stuns is all Knuckles really has, making him a pretty easy target to kill during it. Colossus is often seen as his best matchup, and I wouldn't say that. I'd rather phrase it as more of an equal matchup, if anything, a very neutral one. Colossus has an equal amount of mind games, and the two have to engage each other on them. Counter beats charge, so Colossus will charge into a wall, or instead wait out the counter by charging in circles. Alternatively, punch damage reduction and charge time might beat charge if he lets himself get hit by it. Block beats punch, but Knuckles can hold it and punch the ground instead to bypass the block. However, Colossus might time his jump while blocking to avoid the ground slam and then punish Knuckles. If Knuckles counters, Colossus can grab and wait out the counter for a secured punish. Basically, the mind games run the deepest against Colossus, which can be both a good and a bad thing for Knuckles. Tripwire is absolutely his toughest matchup. He can't disarm bombs currently, and Tripwire has incredible speed thanks to her glide, allowing her to close gaps after stun recovery easily, which really hurts Knuckles' whole game plan. Also, all of her abilities really just don't care about counter outside of her M1s. At least stun stacking is good in all of these matchups, minus a pre-Rage mode 2011X. It's definitely one of the easiest ways he can provide consistent value without needing to engage in such inherently risky play. There's a lot more to discuss with Knuckles, but I think he's a comfortable mid-tier due to his emphasis on skill and mind games, and he carries a large amount of risk in everything he does if it doesn't go his way. I don't want to linger on him for much longer, but I will say he's also a character heavily dependent on his team composition as a whole. He's a lot better when paired with survivors that are capable of healing, powerful stunners, or other stun stackers. He doesn't benefit nearly as much from teammates with weak stuns that have a shorter window to stack, or are less impactful stuns altogether that give him less time to get away. Blaze is very similar to Knuckles, but is largely much easier to play and has far more versatile and flexible tools at her disposal. Prior to version 0.2, very few characters had any form of displacement, and like Silver, Blaze is designed around having very strong displacement capabilities, giving her a very unique team role to fulfill. Her roundhouse kick comes out fast, her air kicks can be aimed omnidirectionally, and she has a pretty strong and powered stun ability. While her stuns don't hit particularly hard, they can end up applying burn, as well as having tremendously short cooldowns when hit successfully. If Blaze can hit you with a stun, run you a little bit, then hit you with a good javelin throw, she'll probably be able to buy enough time to get another stun back, and at that point, someone has already shown up to help her take some of the pressure off. Javelin is seriously one of the best moves in the game with how much displacement it can do, at what range, and the fact that it can also hit stunned executioners, and the empowered version of it, Soul Flame, offers just a really long and obnoxious debuff and displacement flamethrower. The only bad part about Soul Flame is how close she needs to be to use it, which can open her up to a cheeky attack afterwards if she isn't careful. Blaze is one of the few characters to also have all 3 Executioners be pretty comfortable matchups for her. She's able to combat 2011X pretty comfortably due to how her kit interacts with Rage Mode. Colossus can block her, sure, and while Blaze can't stun stack, she can use her javelins on any stunned Executioner as previously mentioned, and that can be especially brutal on Colossus. Her roundhouse kick on the ground comes out pretty fast, and Blaze can outright deny charge pretty harshly with Soul Flame. Against Tripwire, Blaze can disarm as well as displace. Not the greatest, but still impactful, especially depending on the map and positioning. She's a character you want to bring because she can disarm, so there's that. I wouldn't say Blaze is a very complicated character, and I don't have that much to say about her truly. Her most notable downside is that she has a bit of trouble using her meter, controlling when and where she wants to use it. That being said, if she was able to do that, she might be a little too good. She already is one of the stronger characters in the game in my opinion, and isn't exactly hurting for buffs. Outside of this, as mentioned, her stuns aren't the longest, and Soul Flame has the potential to leave her exposed. Her mobility is also quite low. While she's pretty fast when she runs, she lacks any form of strong mobility option even with her air kicks. Finally, she very much is one of those characters that can just miss her abilities and die, which just about every character we'll be covering after her is not one of those characters. Blaze is an A tier because she does a little bit of everything and offers a lot of things that other characters don't, but she's largely just a jack-of-all-trades frontliner. She offers consistent, solid value to any team and matchup in the game currently, and hey, that's pretty good. Sonic is the first character that we're going to have in A tier, but he's bordering on S tier. He's threatening to break into it at this point. Let's talk about strength first. Sonic has a lot going for him. He has the fastest run speed in the game, as well as a dodge meter that serves as a buffer to his HP that he can restore through successfully landing Drop Dash. Drop Dash was already a pretty difficult stun to land in version 0.1, but after the version 0.2 update, it's really just even more inconsistent. Sonic makes up for this by being one of the only 2 characters capable of stun stacking, meaning Sonic can always reliably refill his dodge meter and contribute to every stun he's around for. While Drop Dash can be hard to use as an initial stun or self-defense stun, that's why it's so good that it can also be used to grant Sonic even greater mobility. While it lacks in self-defense stunning, it's an incredible self-defense option in general, especially against command grab moves like 2011X's charge, Colossus's charge, and a lot of other things of that nature, as Sonic is fully immune to them during that. It's basically Sonic's Swiss Army knife ability, which fulfills numerous different roles for himself and his team. This just leaves us with Peel Out. Peel Out is just not as good as it used to be in my opinion. It can oftentimes mess up his team in heated moments by stopping their movement briefly, only to then pick up the next target and consistently drop everyone on the floor. Sonic often wants to save specific teammates, especially a Cream, but can often struggle to pick her up specifically when so many others are around trying to protect her, and then he can't even tell if he actually has her. Really, it's just an unreliable move to save specific teammates in a crowded situation, but is really good for isolated teammates with no one else around. Sonic might also be able to rip it mid-chase after a drop dash or leveraging his dodge or certain map layouts like springs and stuff. So where do this guy's weaknesses start? We've pretty much already talked about them, but I'll go into a little bit more detail. Drop dash is pretty weak and inconsistent by itself, even if you're good at Sonic. It's still incredible for getaways, but as a protector option, it just isn't great. Without stun stacking, Sonic would just be kinda bad when it comes to stun due to how inconsistent drop dash can be. His other problem is also related to drop dash, being that it's really his only form of self-defense. Peel Out takes several seconds, and doing so mid-chase will often result in draining all your dodge for it, or even taking a few hits or going down entirely. Once Sonic doesn't have his drop dash, he's a sitting duck, and better hope he has dodge, because until someone comes to bail him out or he can last long enough for drop dash to come back, he's just as vulnerable as anyone else. The only other notable downside Sonic has is that Peel Out can be outright detrimental to certain teammates' survival when he tries to peel out in crowded places. You can absolutely just get people killed from picking them up and instantly putting them down. I think with the recode, he'd benefit a lot from being able to specifically choose which teammates he wants to pick up as he's charging the move. That way, you don't pick up and drop someone and lock their movements, and end up not saving the teammate you wanted to in the first place. 2011X is a pretty good matchup for him prior to Last Man Standing. During LMS, I would say it depends on the map and a few things that 2011X doesn't have that much control over. His LMS against 2011X is extremely volatile, as Sonic is prone to either having all of his options extremely countered and exploding, or being outright untouchable if things go his way. Colossus is one where Sonic is pretty good at keeping himself safe, but he'll struggle a lot as a protector. Drop dash is deceptively hard to hit on Colossus at the moment, and charge can chase down a peel out pretty efficiently as well as catch it or the person he's carrying. Sonic also has no answers to Tripwire's landmines, but he still has his dodge, stun stacking, high base speed, and mobility options, to at least ensure he can keep himself safer when under her scrutiny. Overall, Sonic is a very flexible character that's generally solid at worst in every situation. He's incredible for solo queue, and he's incredible for coordinated team play. You can absolutely be a thorn in the executioner's side, whether it be impossible to pin down personally, or constantly interfering with every little thing the executioner wants to do. Tails is a character who looks like he should be an S tier based on my ranking, but there are things holding him back that are hard to convey within the ranks of this video, and the general lettering of a tier list. A lot of people tend to underrate or downplay him, and I think the reason for that is that just a lot of the player base for this game is either outright bad, or has the unfortunate circumstance of having inconsistent public match quality. Starting with what's good, let's talk about his laser. The laser cannon starts the game on cooldown and requires a few seconds to charge. Once it is charged, it's one of the hardest hitting stuns in the game, as well as one of the easiest to land. This stun's actual hitbox lasts for so long as well, that Tails can actually shoot it, intentionally miss Colossus's block, and then swipe it over him once his block actually ends to stun him. It also has practically infinite range so long as Tails has line of sight. Glide is also one of the strongest mobility options in the game, as it allows Tails to fly freely for several seconds. He's able to cover extreme horizontal distances, and can fly to really any perch in the game so long as he intends to from the start. It's also really good at stalling without much of a plan. There is one other issue it does have though, being that it takes a second to gain altitude to avoid being swiped by a jumping executioner. This is where we get to one of the first two major flaws of Tails. However, it's important I clarify that these are not design flaws, but rather intentional flaws to balance him out. If he didn't have these, he would be busted, and a lot of people tend to act like these things make Tails unplayably bad. He's not. Tails is not a reactive character. He is a proactive character as well as a preemptive character. He requires game sense, strategy, and planning ahead to make use of. This is not a character you're meant to autopilot like you can with a lot of the other characters in this game. Your positioning matters a lot, and both your tools have clear weaknesses when used reactively. While a lot of Tails gameplay really is just sitting on a high perch with a large sightline and then charging your laser and just holding the angle, this is still an absurdly strong niche that performs extremely well in an actual match. Because the stun is so long, Tails should always be able to gain a ton of distance after if he doesn't already have it, as well as set up for the rest of Team Sonic to come in and stun stack. You should be doing your best to never be alone as him unless you have your laser charged up and ready to fire, and should be frequently doing your best to hang out in areas that people frequent that also give you the largest benefit of his perch sniper playstyle. Colossus is down a long hallway and is about to charge you, and Glide won't give you the altitude necessary in time to avoid it. Why are you even there in the first place on ground level? Why didn't you just opt to glide earlier, even if it means he won't use his charge? A lot of people ask what am I even supposed to do in this situation, and sometimes the answer is simple, albeit a little smug. The answer is to just not find yourself in that situation to begin with. This then comes to our second major flaw of Tails, which is that he just does have a noticeable greater dependency on his team compared to other survivors. It's not so much that he needs to play around them, but rather his team should be playing around Tails. When you have a good and smart Tails, you always want to try your best to be around him. You can't expect him to follow you everywhere because he has very specific needs with his positioning. You want Tails to be able to see you, and as long as the depth of field isn't messing him up, he can protect you with one of the best stuns in the game. You don't need to stand next to him, he just needs to be able to see you. When it comes to matchups, 2011X is unfortunately the best executioner when it comes to dealing with Tails. Rage mode breaking him out of stun significantly hampers Tails in the early game, and it's very common for beginner and intermediate Tails to find themselves stunning a 2011X to get free from the stun due to rage mode filling, and then just kills Tails mid-laser animation. Outside of this, 2011X's kit is basically just designed to kill Tails. He can absolutely work in this matchup, especially against a post-rage mode 2011X, but he's most dependent on his team in this matchup. Colossus is Tails' best matchup by a lot. Tails has a ton of block mind games he can do with his laser, and his glide is extremely strong at avoiding Colossus and his charge. Tails is also extremely strong against Tripwire. He has the easiest stun in the game to land on her, and he can stun her and disarm bombs in one use of his laser. Or at least it's supposed to. It doesn't right now, from my testing. But it should be able to, otherwise there's no reason they should even be pointing it out in the first place. 45 seconds for a 3-second mine is not a good trade if it doesn't come with an executioner stun. While Brighter Days does shut down his glide, that means Tails just needs to position with that in mind and keep track of her cooldowns. Tails is one of the hardest survivors to pin down when his team is good, and he contributes a lot of stunning power and safety that no other survivor in the game currently offers. I'd go as far as to say that he's not even that bad on X's Castle even. It's absolutely his weakest map, but he can work a lot better there than people give him credit for. Tails also debatably has the most consistent last man standing in the game, as Laser goes on a 15-second cooldown and has a roughly 1 second time of charge up. He's good in all of them, even against 2011X, and honestly especially against 2011X. Overall, Tails is an extremely powerful character when played in coordinated lobbies. He struggles when a team isn't playing the game in a coordinated and cooperative fashion, but when a team knows what they're doing, he's one of the most powerful members of it. Metal Sonic is an extremely hard character to rank, and I simply can't decide if I want him to join S tier, or if he should just be the guardian of it. Regardless, Metal Sonic is debatably one of the strongest characters in the game entirely. Let's start with the good as usual. He's only got 1 life but has 175 HP starting out, and 50% damage reduction at all times. This means that effectively, he has around 260-ish HP at round start. Combine this with him being one of the faster characters in the game movement speed wise, and then possessing one of the strongest moves in the game with Destructive Charge. DC serves as both a pure mobility option for Metal Sonic, as well as a quick way to cross the map and save someone from being attacked by an Executioner. During the charge, Metal can also pick up an Executioner and carry them away, or just slam them into a wall. Of course, this damages him, but Metal Sonic doesn't really care about that due to how much effective HP he has. Not to mention, this is probably the single most hard-hitting stun in the game, and generally the best stun in the game full stop when it comes to looking at cooldown economy as well. This stun perfectly complements stun stackers, and I would say is what makes them good in the first place, having an extremely high base time and allowing Metal to freely reposition an Executioner should he initiate the stun, bringing him closer to a Knuckles that's charging up, for example. Beyond that, his self-heal is also quite ridiculous and gets even better when nearby Tails, or especially Eggman. Eggman's heal is so fast that his shield oftentimes buys enough of a window to finish a heal off, and then Tails can charge his laser to protect Metal as well. Combine Eggman's healing boost with Metal's stun time, and Metal can oftentimes just heal right in an Executioner's face after a stun. Put this all together, and Metal Sonic is arguably the strongest character in the game, full stop. However, there's more. Metal Sonic occupies a unique place within Sonic lore himself, often being regarded as the pinnacle creation of Eggman, and hey, there's a reason that almost every fight he's lost in recent canons of both modern and classic timelines, almost all of his losses come from being jumped by multiple characters at once. The time and effort an Executioner has to put into killing a truly skilled and knowledgeable Metal Sonic player is insane. It gets to the point where an Executioner player realistically can't go for it due to how much his team is supporting him and how hard Metal is to pin down. Even if an Executioner secures that kill, the amount of time that Metal Sonic can waste between using DC solely defensively, as well as the damage reduction and all the slowdowns an Executioner will face tunneling out Metal, it's worth a lot for his team. I'd hate to call Metal Sonic a disposable teammate, but rather of all the people to be tunneled and die, Metal Sonic is the most beneficial one to suffer that fate, and is also shockingly well equipped to deal with it. He's got the mobility, the tankiness, the recovery, and a middle finger on the way out should he actually die. If you learn how to run a map as Metal Sonic the best way to use his charge for personal survivability, and get a strong game sense, Metal is absolutely an S-tier survivor, and is probably the best stunner in the game overall. And he only gets better when Tails and Eggman are on the team and are making an active effort to support him. Metal really only has 2 flaws. First, he's just got a very linear moveset. Heal is powerful and is just completely unusable in Chase for obvious reasons. In the Chase, all an Executioner has to do is look out for Destructive Charge, and all Metal has to leverage other than that is his effective HP. The only other weakness is that if he's hit while healing or while charging up his charge, his damage reduction won't affect that attack. Granted, Metal Sonic absolutely has ways of getting around this mid-chase when it comes to charge, but typically a cancel charge or 2 will result in death. A lot of people might consider how vulnerable he is to being tunneled a weakness of his, but really a good Metal player knows this risk and knows how to make the most of it. I wouldn't even say it's that bad of a thing about the character. His linear moveset also gives him trouble when it comes to actually fulfilling his team role. He synergizes extremely well with the stun stacking duo, unless they're starting the stuns. Metal Sonic himself can't stun stack, he'd be too good if he could, honestly. But this oftentimes means that he'll struggle to protect his team if they're doing too good of a job at protecting themselves or landing their stuns. Really though, if these are the biggest problems that Metal Sonic has to face, that explains why he's so high up here. Let's be blunt. Cream is here because she's the only dedicated and reliable source of healing in the game. She heals the wounds. With her rework on the horizon and possible changes to healing as a whole later down the line, who knows, I can't say Cream will be here forever, especially as more survivors capable of supporting their team through healing come out. Cream's competition will become very fierce once that starts happening. Anyway, her heal in its current state is crazy, especially with cheese. The only real downside is that she can't cancel it as long as someone is in range, forcing her to dash, which I think is just overkill. Speaking of dash, it's pretty bad when it comes to things like actually hitting an executioner with it. I also don't really like that it can grief her teammates, that's kinda sucky. It is good for getting extra air time to trigger her glide though, as well as air stall in general. Cream's glide is the core of her defensive kit. It's slow, but she can gain enough height to constantly loop high areas of a spring and waste a lot of time. When it comes to matchups, Cream does what she does against 2011X, and then will fall over in rage mode if she gets targeted, like literally any other survivor other than Metal and Silver, go figure. Colossus is actually kind of funny, because I'd argue Cream has a better matchup against him than someone like Amy. Cream has her heal iframes to ignore charge, and her glide and dash give her a lot of ways to stall and avoid damage, and she also doesn't have to worry about block at all. Tripwire is completely shut down by Cream being present. Tripwire's whole deal is dealing a lot of little ticks of damage spread out to constantly build pressure. Cream just resets that in a few seconds, and Tripwire will especially struggle to kill Cream when everyone is doing what they can to protect her in a competent lobby. Amy makes for a pretty good bodyguard in this particular matchup, and Amy in general is one of Cream's best teammates, which I think in some cases could definitely bump her up, as she's the only character capable of healing Cream herself at a pretty reasonable rate. Overall, Cream is the healer. With the way I'm grading this particular tier list, there's no way I couldn't put her in S tier because of what I value. Nobody's doing what she's doing, and what she's doing is extremely valuable and strong when she does it. Someone has to sit at the top of a game's tier list, and to me, Silver when played at his best is the clear number one in the meta currently. However, what I will say about Silver is that he's absolutely not going to be here for long either. In his current state, he's a survivor that offers a tremendous amount of independence to his player, as well as a ton of unique styles of team support. Silver focuses entirely on displacement, debuffing, and his own survivability to be a constant thorn in the side of an executioner at mid-ranges. Silver also has 105 HP. If an executioner does 50 damage per hit, that means whereas every other survivor other than Metal goes down in 2 hits, Silver goes down in 3. Combine this fact with his flight. It's a really jank ability, one that shouldn't be tied to spacebar, but outside of that, it's one of the strongest mobility options in the entire game. Flight allows Silver to basically go wherever he wants and reposition almost instantly, and he's one of the best at diving in and out of danger. This is the part of his kit that ties him together and makes him function in the first place. Suspension is his bread and butter. It can grab executioners and hold them in place to set up for easy stuns, or Silver can throw them in a direction to create space. Of course, you can throw an executioner off a cliff or ledge, and that's one of the best ways to use it. Rocks are also really good. I don't know what people are talking about when they say they're bad. They're absolutely cumbersome to use and hard to aim, but the effect itself is extremely potent. When Silver hits an executioner with a rock, he silences them and slows them down for several seconds, buying plenty of time for your team to get their cooldowns back or gain more distance. If Silver hits all 3, he stuns the executioner. You never really want to actually try and do this because the stun is just pitiful. You're much better off taking the silence and gaining space or setting up for other teammates or a suspension afterwards. There's only one instance you really want to go for the rock stun, and that's if someone is being grabbed by 2011X and there isn't a better dedicated stunner around to do it for you. This brings us to his last ability, Rewind. This move is tremendous for going for high-risk revives and keeping Silver himself out of harm's way, and can be used mid-chase as a mix-up option. For some reason, it doesn't have iframes on the actual rewind itself. This really only causes bugs from what I've noticed, and I think he just should have iframes on the rewind, and it's weird that he doesn't. Overall, Silver is extremely mobile, and his abilities are all about limiting the movement options of the executioner, as well as enabling the team to do their game plans. He's not intruding on anyone else's lane, which is part of the reason why he's so high up on this list, and what he does himself is incredibly impactful. I would say he also has the best personal survivability of any character in the game right now, far surpassing the likes of EGGMAN, who at the moment is the actual closest thing the game has to a dedicated survivalist character. However, obviously, Silver does have some pretty noticeable flaws. His biggest one right now is that he's just really jank to play still. Flight is such an inconsistent ability because it's bound to spacebar. I'll oftentimes have to press spacebar 3 times in order to land, and at that point, I've exhausted my full meter and now I can't fly until it's full again. Rocks, as mentioned previously, are a bit cumbersome to aim. You can get around this by just positioning quickly and throwing them fast, but if you miss, you're absolutely getting hit at least once. I already mentioned Rewind not having iframes, which really only hurts the game as a whole, rather than being a downside to Silver specifically. Almost every time I've seen an Executioner interact with him as he's rewinding, something in the game breaks pretty bad. Really, his biggest flaw right now is that he's just jank. He's missing some refinements and some polishing, and hopefully the recode can fix a lot of these issues, as his other flaws are very minor. For his matchups, 2011X is an easy one. Silver doesn't feed rage mode on anything he does, and is significantly more mobile than 2011X. His silencing capabilities are also really strong against rage, as well as his ability to force 2011X off of high edges. However, the last man standing of Silver versus 2011X is just objectively impossible for Silver. God's Trickery puts 2011X directly on top of him, and then Charge catches him through his flight and does guaranteed damage. The last man standing for Silver is long enough, meaning that 2011X basically guarantees a kill on Silver. Silver already gets an F rank at the moment for simply just existing whether he lives or dies, so you might as well put your life on the line if it looks like it's going to come down to LMS, because Silver really just can't afford to take it against 2011. He's amazing against 2011X until LMS is a factor. Colossus is another extremely strong matchup for Silver. Silver is all about playing keep away, and Colossus wants to get close. Silver can just fly away when Charge is coming, or outright grab it with suspension. Silencing also hurts Colossus a lot. Tripwire, again, is also a really strong matchup for him. Silver is able to stay away and out of line of sight, the easiest out of all the survivors in the game thanks to flight. While suspension is hard to hit against Tripwire, he makes up for this by being the best disarmer in the game. Rock is on a 19-second cooldown, and he can spawn up to 3 of them. That's 3 mines disarmed every 19 seconds, assuming all the mines are within reach of one another. Once Silver gets his much-needed polishing and quality of life changes, I think he will be a consistently stronger survivor than he is now. I can't think of any other Sonic characters with a power set like his either, so I don't think anyone else is going to intrude on his niche too harshly in the future as well. However, if you remember at the start of this section, I said Silver's spot as number 1 in this game isn't going to be forever. Fleetway is the next Executioner coming to the game, and in this matchup, Silver doesn't seem like he'll be that great. Not only is Fleetway pretty tiny, but he's also extremely fast and omnidirectional with his mobility, just like Silver. Hitting this guy with rocks or suspension will be extremely difficult, and Silver has no way of contributing towards HP damage. Another matchup I foresee Silver struggling in is Furnace and Starved. Assuming they go forward with Furnace and Starved being a double trouble Executioner, Furnace himself can fly, and many of Silver's ability will hold Silver himself in place as well as he uses them. Silver isn't the strongest character to ever grace Outcome Memories forevermore. He's just the strongest in the current landscape of the game as it stands. As more characters get added to both sides of the game, I think Silver will naturally fall out of being the best survivor in the game, but he'll still always be really good. And really, we're one major content update away from that being the case. I think Fleetway is probably as bad as it'll get for this guy though in terms of matchups. So, there was my tier list for the circumstances I gave you in this video. I think it's important to note that one person's tier list is not the full story. You need to cross-reference multiple tier lists to get the best idea of something. The tier list we just went through has a very clear goal stated, that being competent full lobbies and assuming everyone is experienced and knowledgeable on the game. The conditions this tier list is grading on is not how you'll experience Outcome Memories 100% of the time. Believe it or not, there's also tier lists for specific skill levels. A grappler in a fighting game can oftentimes be considered a knowledge check. If players don't know the bag of tricks and nuances that go into a grappler's game plan, they can tend to blow people up pretty hard, and as such, at that skill level, would be pretty high. That's why grapplers are so good in online laggy environments of mixed skill, but you oftentimes don't see them at the highest level of play. So just know that because I'm very articulate with my own advice and opinions on balancing, doesn't mean everyone and anyone should take what I say in this video as word of God or something. I appreciate people caring about what I have to say that much, but it's important to always get your information from multiple sources and your own experiences, and that goes for everything in life. Anyways, I'll maybe have 1 or 2 more videos on Outcome Memories before the next major content update, and from there I'll probably do some guides on it or some other games. If you want to see those, like, subscribe, whatever. I'm just grateful that you watched to the end of the video. Take care.